My name is Madison, and I've been a nurse for almost 3 years now. I'm 24, living in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city, and I've worked damn hard to get here. No handouts, no favors, just long nights, tough shifts, and a relentless determination to carve out a life for myself. And yet, there I was, working a 12-hour shift at the hospital on my 24th birthday. The sterile smell of disinfectant in the air, the beeping of machines that never stopped, and the endless patients to tend to. The fact that I was spending my birthday on my feet, taking care of strangers, didn't really bother me. I'd gotten used to it. It was just another day, another shift. But then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced down, expecting a message from a colleague or maybe a patient needing something. But no, it was from my dad. The car's been sold. We need you to cover Derek's tuition. You know we've helped you out before, so it's your turn to pitch in. I read it over twice, hoping I misinterpreted the words. But no, there it was in black and white. My car was gone. Sold, just like that, without a word to me. And the worst part? They were asking me, yet again, to put my hard-earned money into my brother Derek's college fund. My brother, who seemed to always get the benefit of the doubt, the extra attention, and everything he wanted, while I worked my ass off just to make ends meet. I stood there for a moment, the sterile hospital room closing in around me. I could almost hear the voices in my head. My mom's soft murmurs of agreement, my dad's commanding presence. This was always the way it went. Madison, the responsible one. Madison, the fixer. Madison, the one who would always come through, no matter what. It had always been like this. Growing up, it was always about sacrifices, my sacrifices. I worked when I was a teenager, picking up extra shifts to cover the bills, to pay rent, to make sure the house stayed standing, while Derek got to coast. My parents never seemed to notice that he was always given preferential treatment, that he never had to sacrifice anything. The money I earned never felt like it was mine. It was always for the family. I never once thought to ask for anything for myself. I just gave. And now, at 24, here I was, still giving, still paying, still the one who was expected to pull through, even when I needed something for myself. The worst part? I couldn't even bring myself to argue. I couldn't tell my dad that it wasn't fair. I couldn't tell my mother how much I resented the way they always used me. I felt like I was being strangled by the weight of their expectations, the never-ending need for me to fix things. But when it came to me, when it came to my dreams, my needs, those were always brushed aside. A sacrifice to be made for the sake of the family, and for what? So they could continue to ignore me when I needed help? So Derek could continue to get a free pass? I took a deep breath, tucking my phone back in my pocket and forcing myself to focus on the tasks at hand. I had a job to do, after all. I was here for my patients, but as the hours ticked by, I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside of me had snapped, something that couldn't be fixed by another shift, another paycheck, another sacrifice. It wasn't just the car. It wasn't just the tuition. It was everything. The years of feeling unseen, of being nothing more than a resource for everyone else. The years of being used, and I couldn't take it anymore. My birthday came and went without so much as a phone call from anyone at home. Just a reminder text from my dad about the money. I kept my mouth shut, but deep down I was angry at myself for always falling into this role, and angry at my family for expecting me to do so. That night, I sat on the edge of my hospital bed, the hum of the machines in the background as I looked at my phone again. I started to type a response to my dad, something biting, something that would show I was done. Done being the doormat, done being the one who always gave, done being the one who was never seen or heard. But before I could hit send, a nurse poked her head in, reminding me that my shift wasn't over, so I sent nothing. But the truth was, I had already decided. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about my independence, my dignity. I was tired of being trapped in this role, and I was ready to break free. Growing up, I didn't have much of a choice but to contribute. It wasn't like I was given an allowance or allowed to enjoy my teenage years the way some of my friends did. The pressure started early. I remember being 14, maybe 15, when my parents first handed me the responsibility of paying part of the rent. I had a part-time job at a local diner, waiting tables, scraping by with just enough to pay for the things I needed: books for school, a couple of new outfits for myself. But it was never enough. My parents would always find ways to use up whatever I earned. There was always a bill that needed to be paid, groceries to be bought, or some emergency to deal with. I never said no. How could I? It was my responsibility, they told me. They had sacrificed so much for me, they said. But even then, I could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on me, making me feel like I had to give and give and give until there was nothing left for myself. There was always more to sacrifice. And then there was Derek. He was younger, more carefree, always the one who got off easy. While I was busting my ass trying to keep things together at home, he was off living the life he wanted, going to parties, hanging out with friends, getting all the perks while I was working myself to the bone. I couldn't remember the last time I had a birthday party or any kind of celebration for myself. But Derek, oh, he had the best of everything. New clothes every season, a brand new bike when he was 12, and later, the best tech gadgets that money could buy. He got the freedom I never had. He was the golden child, always excused from any responsibility, always the center of attention. I worked multiple jobs throughout high school, saving up for my own independence. I didn't want to keep living like this. I wanted out. I wanted to feel like I wasn't just the responsible one, the one everyone leaned on. So, I pushed through, trying to build a future for myself. I became a nurse at 21, a job I was proud of. But even then, it felt like my parents still saw me as a bank. No matter how much I worked, no matter how many hours I put in, the demands never stopped. They always had something they needed. When I got my first promotion at the hospital, I was proud. It felt like a victory. It was a sign that all my hard work was paying off. But it wasn't enough. They still came knocking. I had finally achieved something for myself. But all I could think about was the look on my dad's face when he texted me about the sale of my car. I had been working so hard to save up for a car, something that was mine, a little independence, something that wasn't tied to them, to their needs, but now it was gone. It didn't matter that I'd worked for that car. It didn't matter that I had finally gotten my own place, my own things. None of it mattered because Derek's tuition was more important than my car. Even now with my promotion, I still felt like I was just doing the same thing I had always done, sacrificing. There was always something they needed. They needed me to pick up the pieces. They needed me to be the one who fixed things. But where did that leave me? There was no time for myself. No time to dream, to make plans, to build a life of my own outside of them. I wasn't just a daughter, I was a resource that never got a break. I tried to tell myself that I didn't mind, that this was just the way it had to be. Family comes first, right? But as I stared at my phone screen, reading my father's text about the sale of my car and the tuition bill, I felt a fire inside me, one I hadn't felt in years. I was tired of this, tired of being the one who gave everything and received nothing in return. Tired of watching Derek get everything he wanted without lifting a finger. I had earned my independence, fought tooth and nail for it, but it was always stripped away, piece by piece, for the sake of their convenience. The worst part? I didn't even know how to stop it. How do you tell your family that you've had enough when they've always relied on you? How do you break free from a pattern that's been set your entire life? I knew what I needed to do, but the thought of confronting my parents, of pushing back against the expectations they had for me, terrified me. It wasn't just about money, it was about my whole life. I was tired of being the one to sacrifice. I was tired of being the one who never got a choice, and that realization that I had been living for them and not for myself hit me like a ton of bricks. I was 24. I was tired of sacrificing everything for a family that took and took but never saw me as more than a tool, a source of endless support. I wasn't going to let it go on any longer. The day seemed to drag on as I worked my shift. My hands moved mechanically, checking vitals, administering medications, and offering smiles to patients who barely acknowledged me. It was my 24th birthday, but it didn't feel like a special day. There was no cake, no balloons, no sense of celebration, just another shift in the endless cycle of my life. My phone buzzed in my pocket again, the screen lighting up with another message from my dad. Madison, we're going to need you to cover $5,800 for Derek's tuition. He's starting college next week and needs to have the payment in full. You know how important this is. I swallowed hard, fighting the wave of frustration that immediately rushed over me. The first message about my car had stung enough, but now this felt like another blow. This time directly to my sense of independence. I had worked my ass off for that car, paid every monthly installment, and finally had something of my own, but now it was gone, sold to cover Derek's tuition, and now here I was, being asked to pay again for his future, while mine felt more uncertain with each passing day. I tried to push it away, to focus on my work. It wasn't easy, though. Every time I looked at the clock, I was reminded that I wasn't spending this day the way I wanted. And every time I tried to think about something else, my dad's words would creep into my mind. You know how important this is. It wasn't about Derek's education. It was never about that. It was about me being the one who always picked up the slack, who always made things work for the family, no matter what it cost me. My brother Derek had never been asked to do anything like that. He was the golden child, the one who always got a free pass, the one who never had to make any sacrifices. And yet, here I was, left to clean up the mess, to cover the costs, to be the one who supported everyone while they lived their lives without ever looking back. I sat in the break room for a moment, trying to catch my breath, when my phone buzzed again. Madison, we've always helped you out. Don't forget that. It's your turn to do the right thing. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The right thing? What was that supposed to mean? They always pulled this card, as if their financial burdens were more important than my own. The way they made it seem like I owed them something, like I was supposed to keep giving without asking for anything in return. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I had to call them. I couldn't sit here stewing in my own frustration, so I dialed my dad's number, trying to steady my breathing before he picked up. "Hey, Dad," I said, keeping my voice even. "I just got your text. I need to talk to you about the car and the tuition payment." "What's there to talk about?" he replied quickly, his tone dismissive. "The car's sold, and we need the money. Derek's future is on the line here." "Dad, my car wasn't just something you could sell without even asking me. I worked for that. I paid for it. And now you're asking me to cover Derek's tuition too? This isn't just about money. It's about everything." There was a pause on the other end. "Madison, you've always had everything handed to you. You've got a job. You've got a car. You've got independence. Derek's future matters too." I gripped the phone tightly. It's not about having things handed to me. I've earned everything I've got, but it seems like no matter what I do, I'm always expected to give, always expected to sacrifice. My voice cracked, and I hated that it did, but it was true. No matter how hard I worked, I was never going to be enough for them. "Well, if you're not willing to help your brother out, then I don't know what else to say. We've always done our part for you, Madison," he said coldly, and I could hear him starting to pull away. "You've done your part." I bit back the anger. "Your part is asking me to pay for everything. Your part is taking from me without ever considering what I might need. Your part is never listening to me." "Madison," my dad sighed. "This is how family works. It's just how things are." And there it was, the manipulation I had always known was there but never had the courage to confront. The way they always turned it around on me, making it seem like I was the one who was in the wrong. I ended the call abruptly, unable to listen to him any longer, but even as I sat there, my phone still buzzing with texts, I knew he wouldn't get it. He didn't want to get it. None of them did. It was my mom's turn to text, and I stared at her message with a growing sense of dread. "Madison, we sold the car because you don't need it. You lived at home for free for so long. This is just the natural way of things. And honestly, I don't know why you're upset. This is what we always agreed on." I stared at the words, my heart sinking. I had lived at home, yes, but it wasn't free. I had paid my share of rent and utilities. I had made sure everything was taken care of so they wouldn't have to worry about it. And now, my mother was twisting the truth to make it seem like I had somehow owed them this. I was being gaslit, plain and simple. I tried to call her, but when she picked up, she sounded almost too calm, too detached. "Mom, you're telling me that the car sale was justified because I lived at home for a while?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "What do you mean? I gave you money every month. I've always given." "Madison, Don't make this into something it isn't, she said, her voice almost soothing. This is just the way things work. You've got your independence now, haven't you? You don't need the car. I felt my blood boil. Independence? You're still taking from me. It doesn't matter that I've worked for everything. I'm always the one who gives, and you never see it. Her response was a cold silence, followed by a soft, "You'll understand one day." And with that, she hung up. I sat there in the break room, tears welling in my eyes, but I wiped them away quickly. I wasn't going to cry, not for them. For the first time, I knew what I had to do. This wasn't just about a car. It wasn't just about money or tuition. It was about me. And it was about time I took control. When I walked through the door that evening, I didn't expect a warm welcome. I didn't even expect a casual acknowledgement of my birthday. What I did expect was a family that, at the very least, would be somewhat aware of my presence in the house. Instead, I walked into a scene that made my stomach churn. The kitchen was filled with laughter, Derek sitting at the table. His face lit up as he discussed his upcoming college plans with my parents. They were all talking about him, what dorm he'd be in, what classes he was excited for, which professors he'd be meeting with. It was like I wasn't even there. "Madison," my mother greeted me, a forced cheer in her voice. "We've been talking about Derek's big day. You know how excited we are, don't you?" I stared at her, trying to find the right words, but all I could focus on was the unacknowledged emptiness of the room. My birthday, the day I was supposed to feel special, felt like an afterthought. It wasn't even about me anymore. It was about Derek, as always. "Yeah, I can see that," I said flatly, trying to keep my emotions in check. Derek glanced up at me, offering a brief, distracted smile before turning back to my parents. "Mom, Dad, you're gonna love this new professor. He's got a ton of connections. You think we could talk to him about some internships?" I didn't even know how to respond. I wasn't sure why it stung so much this time, but it did. All I could think about was the message from my dad, the car that had been sold without my consent, and now this, another sacrifice for Derek's future, while I had to take the back seat once again. I cleared my throat, my frustration bubbling over. "So," I said, my voice tight. "About the car." The room went silent. My father looked up from his plate, his face unreadable. "What about it?" "You sold it," I said, without asking me. "Madison," my father said, shaking his head as though it were the simplest thing in the world. "We needed the money. Derek's tuition is due soon. It's for the family, you understand. But I worked for that car. I paid for it. Madison," he cut me off, a touch of impatience creeping into his tone. "We've always helped you. You're independent now. You don't need it." I felt my blood pressure rise. I had worked every shift, put in every hour just to buy that car, to feel like I had something that was mine. But no, they had stripped that away too, without even blinking, without a word of thanks, of acknowledgement. "You've always helped me," I repeated, my voice rising despite my efforts to keep it steady. "I've always helped you. I've been paying bills, covering rent, making sure you guys don't drown in debt for years. You never see that. You never see me." My mom's voice broke in, soft and soothing, as though I were the problem. "Madison, sweetie, this is how family works. You lived at home for free for so long. We're just helping Derek now. You're fine. You've made your own way." "Helping Derek," I scoffed. "That's all this is, isn't it? A family of leeches. You take and take from me, and when it's time for me to ask for something, anything, you're too busy with Derek's college plans to notice. You sold my car, and now you expect me to cover his tuition?" "Madison, calm down," my mom said, her voice strained with a fake sweetness. "You're making this more dramatic than it needs to be. Look, we have dessert if you want some. It's chocolate cake. Your favorite." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dessert? Was she really trying to deflect with chocolate cake? I felt a surge of anger. "No," I said, my voice cold. "I don't want dessert. I want some respect. I want you to stop treating me like a resource to be used whenever you need something. I am not a backup, a safety net, a wallet. I am your daughter." My words hung in the air, heavy with everything I had been holding in for years. There it was, the truth. I wasn't just mad about the car. I wasn't just upset about Derek's tuition. I was angry about everything, the years of sacrifice, the constant dismissal of my worth, and the refusal to ever see me for who I really was. Derek, who had been casually scrolling through his phone, finally glanced up, offering a lazy smile. Oh, come on, Madison, don't be so dramatic. It's just a car, and the tuition's not a big deal. You've got the money, right? I stared at him, disbelief written across my face. His entitlement, his casual disregard for my feelings, hit me harder than anything my parents had said. He was the golden boy, always given the best of everything, and now, even after everything I had done for this family, he still thought I owed him. You've got the money, right? Derek repeated, as if I was just a bank account to be accessed at will. I stood up from the table, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, the anger coursing through me. No, Derek, I said, my voice shaking with frustration. I don't have the money, not for you, not for anyone in this family. You think I've been working myself to the bone for years to pay for your college, to pay for their mistakes, to clean up your messes. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. This ends now. I am done. No more. I will not be your ATM, your babysitter, or your personal therapist. I've given enough. I turned on my heel and marched to the door, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't look back as I left, my hands clenched into fists. I could feel the weight of the years of sacrifice, of expectations, of abuse. And for the first time, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to let them take from me anymore. I was done being the family's punching bag, done being their resource, done being invisible. I didn't know how long I stood there, my hands clenched into fists, my heart pounding in my chest. The confrontation had been ugly, raw, something I'd been holding in for years, and now it had spilled out. I had confronted them, said my piece, and for the first time in my life, I hadn't backed down. But when the anger faded, it was replaced by a deep, gnawing emptiness. I looked around the house, my childhood home, and realized that I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't stay in a place that made me feel small, insignificant, and used. Not when I had worked so hard to build my own life, to finally have a taste of independence. My eyes skimmed over the familiar surroundings, the faded couches, the cluttered kitchen, the worn rug that had been in the living room for as long as I could remember. This house was a symbol of everything I had sacrificed for, everything I had given up for my family, but now it felt like a cage built by years of manipulation, financial exploitation, and emotional neglect. As I stood there, I realized something. It wasn't just the car. It wasn't the tuition. It was everything. The years of being used, of being expected to fix everyone else's problems while mine were ignored. I had sacrificed my happiness, my peace, my sense of self for them. It was time for that to stop. With shaky hands, I grabbed the first suitcase I could find in my closet. It wasn't much, just the bare essentials, some clothes, toiletries, a few things I could live without. I methodically folded the clothes, placing them in the suitcase, trying to block out the noise in my head, the feeling of guilt that tried to creep in, the little voice that told me I was doing something wrong. But I pushed it down. I couldn't keep living like this. I was suffocating, and leaving this house was the only way to breathe again. I paused for a moment, standing in the middle of my room, the suitcase in front of me. My chest felt tight, but there was also something else, something I hadn't felt in years: empowerment. For the first time, I was making a decision that wasn't based on the expectations of others. I grabbed my phone and texted Amelia, my best friend. She was always there for me, and I knew she would understand. Hey, I need a place to stay for tonight. Can I crash at your place? Her response came almost immediately. Of course. You're always welcome here. You okay? I stared at her text for a moment, the weight of it all settling on my shoulders. Was I okay? I wasn't sure, but I knew I would be. I hit send, the last of my doubts vanishing as I packed the final few things into the suitcase. As I zipped it up, I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. This was the home I had grown up in, the place where I had spent countless nights worrying about my family's problems, taking on responsibilities that weren't mine to shoulder. But it wasn't my home anymore. I glanced around one last time. My parents had barely spoken a word to me after the argument. I didn't know if they were still waiting for me to come back and apologize, or if they were too consumed with Derek's college plans to care. Either way, I didn't owe them anything. I didn't owe them my time, my money, or my energy. I walked out of the room, my suitcase in hand, and made my way down the hall. My footsteps echoed through the empty house, and for the first time, I felt like I was leaving something behind. Not just a physical space, but a part of myself that I had sacrificed for years. I made it to the front door, and as I opened it, I felt a weight lift off my chest. I was stepping into the unknown, but for the first time in my life, it felt like freedom. I wasn't walking away from the family I had once hoped would love and appreciate me. I was walking towards something better, a future where I was no longer the person everyone took advantage of. I slammed the door behind me, the finality of the action making my pulse race. I didn't look back. I climbed into my car, the engine roaring to life as I drove toward Amelia's apartment. I didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had control, and that was all I needed. The bed was too soft, the silence too heavy. I could feel the weight of my decision pressing down on me, and yet, for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like a mistake. The sheets smelled faintly like lavender, a comfort I hadn't known I needed until now. Amelia's guest room was cozy, neat, and quiet. Nothing like the house I had just left. I had left my childhood home the night before, after the explosive confrontation with my family. The anger that had consumed me was now replaced by a strange mixture of relief and apprehension. The house felt empty, like I was untethered, floating in an unfamiliar space, but I knew I had done the right thing. As I lay there in the dim light filtering through the blinds, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I groaned and reached for it, knowing exactly what it would be. Messages, a flood of them, my parents, my brother, each of them trying to reel me back in, trying to manipulate me. I opened the first message. It was from my mom. "Madison, please call me. I know you're upset, but you can't just leave like this. We're your family. We need you." I felt a pang in my chest, but I ignored it. I couldn't keep falling for this. I couldn't keep going back to the same toxic place where they treated me like a tool to be used. The next message was from my dad. "You're acting childish, Madison. We've always been there for you. This is just a little misunderstanding. We'll talk when you come home." Misunderstanding, that word again. It was as if they couldn't comprehend that this wasn't about a mistake. This wasn't about me being upset over one incident. This was about years of being used. Years of having my independence and sense of self stripped away, piece by piece. I scrolled to the next message. "Derek, Madison, I don't know what's going on, but you're overreacting. Just come home and we'll figure it out. You know I didn't mean to hurt you." I clenched my jaw, staring at his words. Overreacting. That's what they all thought. That's what they all believed. They couldn't see that this wasn't about one thing. It wasn't about money or a car or tuition. It was about me, my time, my energy, my life. All of it had been spent in service to them, while I was expected to just swallow down my needs, my wants, my dreams. I tapped out a reply to Derek. "I'm not coming home, Derek. I need space. I need to figure things out, and this time, I'm doing it for me." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. He didn't deserve me to sugarcoat it. He needed to understand that I couldn't keep enabling the same patterns. Just as I put my phone down, there was a soft knock on the door. Amelia's voice called out from the other side. "Hey, you up?" I sat up in bed, running a hand through my hair. "Yeah, I'm up." The door opened a crack, and Amelia's head popped through, her smile comforting but knowing. "How you doing?" I hesitated for a moment, trying to process everything. I had done it. I had made the decision to leave, but that didn't mean it was easy. "I'm okay," I said, and it was the truth. "But I don't know. I guess I feel free, but scared too." She stepped into the room, sitting at the edge of the bed. "That's understandable. You've spent your whole life doing what they needed. It's going to take time to adjust." "Yeah," I agreed, exhaling a slow breath. I've never done anything like this before. I don't know what's next, but I know I can't keep doing this, not for them, not anymore." Amelia gave me a small nod. "It's a huge step, Madison, but it's your step, and that's the most important part." I smiled weakly at her, grateful for her support. Amelia had always been there for me, but I'd never let her in fully, until now. She had known bits and pieces of what had been going on with my family, but this was the first time I'd truly voiced it all. "I'm proud of you," she said, giving me a soft, understanding look. "This is your life. You've been carrying their weight for so long, you don't have to anymore. Thank you, I whispered. I felt a lump in my throat. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear those words until now. I've got your back, she said, offering a warm smile. And don't worry, we'll figure it out together. You've got a whole world ahead of you, and I'm not going anywhere. Her words were a lifeline, a reminder that, despite the mess I'd just walked away from, there was still hope for the future. There was still a way forward, even if it was uncertain. Even if I was scared, I didn't have the answers, but I knew this was the right path. I was finally taking control of my life, for me, and maybe, just maybe, it would be the first step in reclaiming everything I had lost. After a long pause, I stood up, feeling the pull of what was ahead. I'm meeting with a lawyer today, I said, the words coming out almost like a declaration. Amelia raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. A lawyer? You've got this all figured out, huh? I nodded. I think so. I'm ready to take action. I'm not just walking away. I'm going to make sure they can't do this to me anymore. Her eyes sparkled with pride. Good. You deserve to take back your power. I felt the weight of her words settle into my chest. It was time to fight. Not just for the car or the money, but for myself. For my right to exist without constantly being used by my family. I'll help you through this, Amelia said, every step of the way. And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. The morning sun was just beginning to creep through the blinds as I arrived at Judith's office, my heart pounding with a mixture of nerves and anticipation. I had never imagined I'd be here, seeking legal counsel against my own family. But after everything, the car sale, the tuition demands, the years of being taken advantage of, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just walk away anymore. I had to fight back. Judith, a sharp, no-nonsense lawyer with a reputation for handling tough cases, greeted me with a reassuring smile. Madison, right? I've read through the details of your case. Let's sit down and talk about what we can do for you. I nodded, feeling a bit of relief wash over me as I sat down at the polished oak table across from her. She didn't look at me like I was some troubled daughter seeking sympathy. She looked at me like a client who needed justice. And for once, I felt like I wasn't alone in this battle. After explaining the situation once more, how my car had been sold without my consent, how my savings were expected to pay for Derek's tuition, how my family had continually used me, I waited for Judith's response, my breath held. She was quiet for a moment, taking notes before finally speaking. Based on everything you've told me, Madison, you have a strong case. Your family has not only taken advantage of you, but they've done so with the intent to deceive. The sale of your car, without your knowledge or consent, is a clear breach of your rights. I'm confident we can prove this as financial abuse, and you may have a case for fraud as well. I felt a rush of emotions hit me all at once. Relief, disbelief, anger. Finally, someone was acknowledging what I had been feeling for years. Finally, someone saw my side. You're not just imagining things, Judith continued. Your family's behavior is not only unfair, it's illegal. They're trying to manipulate you emotionally and financially, and that's something we can take action on. I leaned forward, the weight of her words settling into my chest. What happens now? How do we move forward? Judith looked me straight in the eye, her voice steady and calm. The next step is gathering evidence. We'll need to collect documentation, texts, emails, any bank statements showing the transactions involving your car and the tuition payment. If we can build a strong case, we can either negotiate a settlement or take them to court. I felt a small knot loosen in my stomach. A settlement. The thought of avoiding a long, drawn-out court battle was appealing. The idea that my family would have to face the consequences of their actions, without me having to air every dirty detail in front of a judge, was a relief. But I also knew that whether through settlement or court, this was the beginning of something bigger. As we discussed the specifics of what needed to be done next, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I looked down, half expecting it to be a message from one of them, trying to reel me back in, and sure enough, it was Derek. Madison, please pick up. I need to talk to you. I had no idea things had gotten this bad. I didn't know how much you were carrying. I stared at the text for a moment, my heart heavy. This was the first time Derek had ever reached out to me, truly reaching out, not just to ask for something, but to admit his ignorance. I hadn't expected it, and part of me didn't want to respond. I didn't want to open up that door again, not without knowing if he could really understand what I had been through. Judith must have seen the hesitation on my face. "That's your brother, right?" I nodded, my finger hovering over the text. "Yeah, it's the first time he's ever said something like that." "Listen, Madison," she said gently. "This is a pivotal moment. Your brother may not have known the extent of what you've been carrying, but this could be an opportunity for you both to have an honest conversation about the family dynamics. It's up to you how you want to approach it, but remember, this is about your boundaries and your healing." I knew she was right. This wasn't just about getting justice for the car or the tuition. It was about rebuilding myself, about having control over my life again, about setting boundaries that I had never had the courage to set before. I took a deep breath, tapped my phone, and began typing a response to Derek. "We'll talk later. I need time to process everything, but I'll listen. Just know this. Things are different now." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders as I put my phone back in my pocket. I wasn't ready to forgive him or my parents, but I was willing to open the door for a healthier, more honest relationship with him. That was a huge step, even if I didn't fully understand what it would look like yet. Judith smiled at me as I looked back up, sensing the shift in my demeanor. "You're doing the right thing, Madison, and don't forget, this fight is not just for the car or the money. It's about taking back your life, and that's the most important thing." I nodded, feeling a new sense of resolve settling in. I wasn't just fighting for a car, for money, I was fighting for me. The first thing I noticed when I stepped into my new apartment was the silence. It wasn't the kind of quiet that feels lonely, but the kind that feels like freedom. No clinking of dishes from the kitchen below, no constant hum of voices from the next room, no one telling me what I should do or how I should feel. It was just me. And it felt like the first real breath I'd taken in years. Amelia had been a huge help in finding me this place. It was small, modest really, but it was mine. No more living with the weight of my family's expectations. No more pretending to be the person they wanted me to be. I was starting fresh, and though I was still processing everything, there was a part of me that already felt lighter. I walked into the living room, setting down the box I had just carried in. There was nothing extravagant about it. The furniture was simple, but everything was clean, neat, and in its place. The walls, bare for now, felt full of potential. I'd get to decide how I wanted to fill them, how I wanted my life to look from here on out. I had never thought much about the little things, like choosing where the couch should go, or how I wanted my coffee table arranged. My parents' house had always been about what they wanted, what Derek needed. It wasn't until now that I realized how much of myself I had buried just to fit into the chaos they created. I sat down on the couch, taking a deep breath and running my hand over the soft fabric. This was mine, my space, my decision. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, pulling me out of my thoughts. I picked it up and saw that I had a message from my lawyer, Judith. "The settlement offer has come in. We need to talk about next steps." I felt a surge of nervousness, but also a strange sense of purpose. This was it, the moment I had been preparing for. The moment when I finally took control of my own story. I called Judith right away, not wanting to waste any more time. "Hi, Madison," Judith's voice came through the line, steady and professional, just like I remembered. "I wanted to update you on the situation. Your family has made an offer to settle the case, but before we make any decisions, I need to walk you through the details." I nodded, sitting up straighter. "Go ahead." "The amount they're offering is substantial," she said, and I could hear the weight in her words. "It's enough to rebuild what you've lost, but it doesn't come without its own set of conditions. They want to avoid the case going to court because of the potential public exposure. They're willing to settle, but we have to be careful. I want to make sure we're getting the best deal for you." I exhaled slowly, processing what she was saying. The idea of a settlement, of avoiding a messy public trial, felt like a relief, but there was a small part of me that wanted more. I wanted them to be held accountable, to face the full consequences of what they'd done to me. "I don't want to rush into anything," I said carefully. "I need to think about this." "I understand," Judith replied. "Take your time, but don't let them rush you into a decision. You've worked hard to get here, Madison. You deserve to take control of this situation." We discussed the terms of the settlement for a while longer, and by the end of the conversation, I had a plan. I wasn't ready to settle for anything less than what I deserved. The money wasn't the most important thing. It was about reclaiming my independence, about showing my family that I wasn't going to be their punching bag anymore. After hanging up, I sat there for a few moments, letting everything sink in. I wasn't just fighting for money, I was fighting for my dignity, for my future. I didn't need them to validate me anymore. This was my life, my choice. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying, but deep down, I knew I was stronger now, stronger than I had ever been. Just as I was about to turn my phone off, another text came through. This one was from Derek. Madison, I can't stop thinking about what you said. I had no idea how much I was taking from you, and I'm sorry. I never realized what you were carrying. I want to make it right. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long moment. It wasn't the kind of apology I had been expecting. No excuses, no deflection. Just a simple admission that he'd been wrong. That was new. It didn't change everything, but it was a start. I typed back a short reply. I'll think about it, Derek, but it's going to take time. The message felt final, but I also felt a shift. A tiny glimmer of hope. Maybe things could be different between us. Maybe he would understand eventually, but for now, I had to focus on myself. I had spent so many years trying to fix everyone else that I had forgotten how to fix myself. The phone buzzed again. This time, it was from Amelia. How's it going over there? Are you settling in okay? I smiled. Grateful for her constant support, I typed back quickly. Yeah, it's perfect. I'm starting fresh. I stared at the text for a moment before hitting send. Starting fresh. It was a phrase I had used many times before, but this time, it felt real. This was my new life, and it was mine to shape. I wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, I was ready to face it head-on. No more manipulation, no more abuse, no more sacrificing myself for others, just me. And that was enough. I stood up from the couch, stretching my arms above my head. My feet felt grounded in a way they never had before. I was standing in the life I had fought for, and nothing would take that away from me. The morning after my first full day in my new apartment, I woke up to a text message from my Aunt Susan. The words on the screen were simple, but they carried a weight that I wasn't sure I was ready to bear. Madison, I've been thinking about everything, and I think it's time you and Derek talked. I know things have been tough, but maybe it's time to try to work through some of this. I can help arrange something if you're open to it. I stared at the message for a long time. A part of me wanted to ignore it. I wasn't ready to open that door again, not when everything had been so clear-cut, but another part of me knew this wasn't just about Derek and me. It was about understanding the whole picture. Derek had been part of the system. He had benefited from the privilege without ever realizing how it affected me, how it made me feel like I was invisible. The entitlement he'd always carried wasn't his fault. It was the way our family worked, but now, maybe he was ready to understand. Maybe this conversation was something I needed, not just for myself, but for him too. I thought about it all morning, pacing around the apartment, letting the weight of the decision settle into my bones. Finally, I texted Aunt Susan back. I'm willing to talk, but I need to set the terms. I'm not going to let things go back to the way they were. Susan replied quickly. Of course, Madison, I understand. I'll set it up. Just let me know when you're ready. I put my phone down and exhaled, the breath that I hadn't realized I was holding escaping in a rush. It felt like I was walking on a tightrope between the past and the future, unsure of which way to go. But one thing was clear. I couldn't keep running from this. It wasn't just about healing from my family's manipulation, it was about making sure it didn't happen again. That afternoon, I sat in the small, cluttered coffee shop where Aunt Susan had arranged for Derek and me to meet. The warm smell of roasted coffee beans filled the air, but my stomach was a tight knot, my nerves buzzing. Derek was already there, sitting at a corner table, his eyes scanning the menu, though I could tell he wasn't really reading it. He looked different, older, tired. The smugness I'd always seen in him seemed gone. When he saw me, his eyes softened, and he stood up awkwardly, unsure of how to greet me. I didn't know what to expect from him, but when he opened his arms for a hug, I couldn't bring myself to refuse. I sat down across from him, the space between us suddenly feeling like an ocean. He fiddled with his coffee cup for a few moments, before finally looking me in the eye. "I'm sorry, Madison," he said, his voice quiet. "I didn't realize what you were going through. I always thought you had it all together. I never saw how much you were sacrificing." The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. I wasn't sure how to respond, so I just nodded. "Yeah, well, you wouldn't have. You've always been the golden child, getting everything handed to you, and I was always the one making sure things worked. But that doesn't mean I was okay with it." Derek shifted in his seat, looking like he was trying to process what I was saying. His eyes softened even more. "I didn't know, Madison. I thought you were just doing it because you had to. I didn't realize how much it hurt you, how much it messed with your life." I felt a strange sense of relief, but it was mixed with a bitterness I couldn't shake. I had spent so long resenting him, wishing he could see what was happening, wishing he could understand. But hearing him say this, admitting his ignorance, was the first step toward healing, if not for me, at least for him. "I never asked for your help, Derek," I said, my voice steady. "I never wanted to be the one who had to fix things, and I didn't want to resent you for your privilege. But it's hard not to when I had to watch you coast while I worked myself into the ground." He stared at me for a long moment, like he was trying to find the words. "I didn't understand, Madison. I just didn't get it. I thought everything was just normal. That's how it was for us. But it's clear now that it wasn't normal for you, and I wish I could have seen that earlier." I nodded, my throat tight. "It's not just about seeing it, Derek. It's about understanding it. Understanding what it's like to give everything and have nothing left for yourself." He looked down at his hands, his fingers playing nervously with his coffee cup. "I want to understand, though. I want to fix this. I know I can't take back what I didn't see, but I can try to do better. I can try to be a better brother to you." I swallowed hard, feeling the mix of anger and sadness rise in my chest. This was the conversation I had wanted for years, but the words were heavy, and the silence between us felt like it stretched on forever. "I don't know if I can just forget everything, Derek," I said softly. "I'm not asking for an apology. I'm asking for respect and boundaries. I've spent so much of my life giving in, giving up parts of myself for this family, but I can't keep doing that. I have to put myself first now." Derek's eyes met mine, and I could see the realization settling in. He wasn't just apologizing for the past. He was acknowledging that I had a right to take control of my life, and that it wasn't just about forgiveness, it was about respect. Respect for my choices, for my boundaries, for the person I had become. "I get it," he said finally, his voice firm. "I promise I'll respect your boundaries. I don't expect everything to change overnight, but I'll be here for you, if you'll let me." I felt the tension leave my body, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of resentment pulling me down. There was a long road ahead, and I didn't know where it would take us, but I felt a shift in our relationship that I hadn't thought was possible. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking, slowly beginning to rebuild the foundation of something healthier, something based on mutual respect. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. As I left the coffee shop, I felt lighter, like something that had been holding me back had finally let go. I didn't have all the answers, but for the first time, I felt like I was walking towards something better, not just for me, but for Derek too. A year had passed since I left my childhood home, and as I stood in front of the mirror in my modest but cozy apartment, I hardly recognized the woman staring back at me. I had come a long way since the confrontation with my family. I had learned things about myself I never expected to uncover, and the journey had been as painful as it was liberating. My apartment was no longer just a place where I slept. It had become a sanctuary, a symbol of everything I had fought for. The walls were lined with pictures of my friends, moments that reminded me of how far I'd come. Amelia had helped me decorate, offering advice on everything from the furniture to the little plants that now brightened the windowsills. It felt mine. I was no longer just surviving, I was living. I had spent months navigating the legal battle with my family, and though the settlement money had helped me rebuild, it was the emotional freedom I had gained that mattered more. Every time I looked at my bank account or signed another lease or set a goal for myself, I was reminded of how much I had accomplished on my own. I had never felt stronger, more independent, or more sure of who I was. I adjusted the hem of my blouse, smiling at my reflection. Today I was heading to a professional event, a gathering of nurses in the city. It was something I'd been working toward for months, and now that I was getting more recognition at the hospital for my dedication and hard work, it felt right to step into the world I had carved for myself, unafraid. I grabbed my bag and checked my phone one last time before leaving. A text from Derek popped up. "Hey, I've been thinking a lot about everything. I know I still have a lot to learn, but I just wanted to tell you again how sorry I am for everything. I get it now, Madison. I see the way I was treated and how it affected you, and I'm doing my best to change. I hope one day you'll believe me." I stared at the message for a long moment. My heart had been hardened by years of resentment, but Derek's words, his genuine remorse, had softened something inside me. It wasn't an apology that fixed everything, but it was a start. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I typed back a simple message, my fingers moving slowly across the screen. "I'm not ready to fix everything, but I'm willing to try, and I appreciate you reaching out. We'll take it one step at a time." After hitting send, I sighed, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known I needed. I wasn't holding on to the past anymore. I had built a life for myself, one where I called the shots, where I didn't answer to anyone's demands or expectations except my own. I locked my door and stepped into the hall, feeling lighter with every step I took. The weight of the old family dynamics, of the financial abuse, the manipulation, had long since been lifted. I wasn't walking away from my family entirely, but I had set boundaries, something I had never done before. I had taken back control over my own life. As I stepped out into the city, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the people who had supported me along the way. Amelia, the friends who stood by me, and even Derek, who, despite everything, was starting to understand the system he had benefited from. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I knew I wasn't walking it alone. I arrived at the event feeling a rush of excitement for the future. There was so much I had yet to experience, and so many opportunities ahead, but most importantly, I knew I was finally free to live life on my terms. Looking around the room, I realized that this was just the beginning. I had taken the first steps toward a future where I was no longer defined by my family's expectations or their manipulations. I was building a future that was all my own, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had everything I needed to succeed. I was no longer a victim of my past, but a woman with a future she could shape however she chose. This was my new life, my real life, and it was just beginning.